Hello, my name is Keshwani. That's K-E-S-H-W-A-N-I, Keshwani. We are here because we want to prepare for SAT. We have been solving SAT math problems out of this book here, the official SAT study guide. If you do not own this book already, purchase one immediately. You're going to need it. The problem that we are about to solve is the one that you will find on page number 795. Please turn to it, page 795, and today is our lesson number 101. Let's take a look at it. It has 16 questions. The first 5 or 6 are going to be easy, the middle 5 or 6 are medium, and the last 5 or 6 are going to be hard. Number 1, of course, is very easy. It says if 6 cars out of 10 are on an assembly line are red, what are the odds that a car that is picked at random will be red? Well, it's just 6 out of 10. Because there are 6 red cars out of a total of 10. It's 6 out of 10 are the odds. Or if you want to reduce it, it's 3 out of 5. 3/5 is the answer. The answer is 3/5. The answer is B. Let's look at the next one. We are given a picture here, which we are told is not drawn to scale, but they go on to tell us something about the picture. It says if AB equals to BC, so let's draw it here. AB equals to BC. AB is equal to BC. Well, if AB is equal to BC, that also implies that this angle must equal that angle because it's an isosceles triangle, and those angles are W and Z. W and Z. So W must equal Z. They go on to further tell us that BD bisects AC. So here's your AC and the BC. BD comes right down here, it bisects it, which means it's sitting at a 90 degree. Which means this side, this length A to D is equal to D to C. Let's make a note here. A to D is equal to D to C. Because of the fact that it bisects this. Okay, so far so good. The question simply is, which of the following cannot be concluded? And we're going to start with E. We're going to start with answer choice E. E says BD is perpendicular to AC. BD is perpendicular to AC, which is true because it just bisects it. These two sides are equal to each other. It comes down straight. It's a 90 degree. Even though they do not give you this symbol here, but we know it's 90 degree because it comes straight down because of the fact that it bisects A to C and AB is equal to BC. So if it's an isosceles triangle, and if you drop a line, see, if I drew it like this, this would not be equal to this, but if I drop a line from the perpendicular, if I drop a line from this point here to the base in such a way that this side equals this side, then it would have to be a 90 degree. It will have to come down straight because of the fact that these two sides are equal. So that is true. AD equals DC. Well, right here, AD equals DC. That is also true. X equals Y. Where is X and Y? X and Y. X equals Y. That is also true because of the fact that the line BD, bisects it, which means it cuts in half. So not only it cuts AC in half, but it also cuts this angle B in half. X equals Y. That is true. B says W equals Z. W equals Z. Right here, W equals Z. That is also true. The answer is A. Whatever A happens to be is the answer because all the others are true. W equals X. W equals X. No, W does not equal X. There is no reason why W would have to be equal to X. The answer is A. Says which of the following cannot be concluded? We cannot tell that W is equal to X. We have no way of knowing that. The only way the W is going to be equal to X, it is possible, but it's not something that's necessarily true. For example, we can make up a scenario here. W has to be twice. So we have to have it's 180 degrees altogether. Okay, watch what happens. Altogether in a triangle, it's 180 degrees. The only way W is going to be equal to X is that we take 180 degrees, we break it up into 4 parts, which is 180 divided by 2 is 90, and 90 divided by 2 is 45. So if W happens to be 45, and this happens to be 45, and if angle B happens to be 90 degrees, then if you drop it, then of course this will be 45 and this will be 45. That's the only way. But it's not something that we can conclude for sure. The question is, which of the following cannot be concluded. There is no way we can conclude that. There is no way of knowing for us, there is no way for us to know if this is actually a 45, 45, 90 angle. We have no way of knowing if angle B is 90 degrees. All we know is that W equals D because A to B is equal to B to C. All we know is that it's an isosceles triangle. That's all we know. We have no way of knowing if these are in fact 45 and 45. So the answer is A. Number 3. Next page, 796. Number 3. If 30% of M is 40, alright, so we know 30% is 40. What is 15%? Well, if 30% if 30% of something is 40, then 15% would have to be half as much, because 15 is half of 30. This will have to be half as much, or 20, which is answer choice B. Let's move on then. Next one, number 4. Number 4. If n is any negative number, which of the following must be true? The most important word here is that it is something that has to be true all the time. In other words, what they're telling us here is that they're giving us 5 answer choices. More than one may be true or may not be true, but there is only one that will have to be true all the time. And our job is to find that one answer choice. Let's take a look at it. If n is a negative number, so we know n is negative. Which of the following not must be true, I misread it, not must be true, but rather must be positive. We're looking for something that has to be positive all the time, not just some scenario where it may be positive or it may not be, but something that has to be true, that has to be positive all the time. Let's take a look. Answer choice A says n over 2. Well, n we know is negative. Negative divided by positive, 2 is positive. Negative divided by positive is going to be negative. That's not it. We're looking for something that is positive. B says 2 times n. Again, 2 is positive, and n we know is negative. Positive times negative is equals negative. We're looking for something that is positive. That's not it. C says n plus 2. N plus 2. Let's take a look at C by itself. Because you see, C is something that may be positive or it may not be positive. All depends on the value of n. If n happens to be negative 1, or for that matter negative anything less than 2, for example negative half or negative 1.5, because it doesn't say it has to be an integer. If n happens to be negative 1, then negative 1 plus a 2 will be positive. If n happens to be negative half plus 2 will be positive. But what happens if n is negative 2? If n is negative 2, then negative 2 plus positive 2 would be a big fat 0. It is no longer positive. What happens if n happens to be negative 20? Negative 20 plus a 2 will be negative. So C is something that may or may not be positive. It may be positive, as we saw here, it may be positive, or it may not be positive. No, we're looking for something that has to be positive, that must be true. Let's look at D. In D, they tell us n minus 2, which can be written as n plus a negative 2. Okay, let's write it like that so it's easy to see. Again, we know n is negative because we are told n is negative. A negative plus a negative plus a negative is going to be negative. That's not it. We're looking for something that is positive all the time. Let's look at E. E says 2 minus n. Watch what happens. 2 is a positive number minus a negative number, because n is negative. N is negative. A negative times a negative, whatever n is, doesn't matter what n is, a negative times negative is going to become positive, so it's positive and plus a positive. That's all. For example, if n happens to be if n happens to be negative 20, then 2 minus a negative 20 will become 2 plus 20. And this quantity will always be positive because of the fact that n itself is negative and we have a negative in front of it. So it makes the quantity positive. So 2 plus some positive quantity, of course it's going to be positive. E is something that has to be true all the time. Number 5. We are told that the ratio of 1.2 to 1 is equal to which of the following? They're simply asking us this ratio is equal to what? Listen, I don't like dealing with decimal point. I don't know about you, but I hate dealing with decimal points. So whenever I see the decimal point, I want to somehow get rid of it. Get rid of the freaking thing. Multiply the top and bottom by 10. Multiply top and bottom by 10. Since we're multiplying both top and bottom by the same number, we're not changing anything. Essentially what we're doing is we're taking our ratio, whatever the ratio that is given to us, and we're multiplying it by 1. And multiplying any number by 1 doesn't change it. 10 over 10 is 1. And by doing so now we can get rid of the decimal because 1.2 times 10 is just 12. And 1 times 10 is just 10. Now we can reduce it. The 6 over 5 is the answer. 6 to 5 is the answer. 6 to 5 is D. Let's look at the very last one, number 6. The legend of a certain, I believe that's how it's pronounced, certain pictograph shows the symbol here that equals to 5 million houses. Approximately how many new houses are represented by the symbol? And the symbol that is given us is 3.5. So 1 equals 5 million. 1 equals 5 million. Question is, how many do 3.5 equal? Well, let's find out. That's just 3.5 times 5. That's all it is. And of course 3.5 can be written as 3 plus a half. 3 plus a half times 5. 3 plus a half times 5 is very straightforward. It's just 3 times, let me do it up here. Three and a half times 5, I'm going to write that as 3 plus a half times 5. And now that is very straightforward. That's 3 times 5, which is 15, and 5 times half, 5 halves. Well, 2 halves make 1, other 2 halves are going to make 2, so it's 2.5. So 15 plus 2.5 is 17.5. That's all. The answer is 17.5, which is D. I will see you tomorrow, or we'll continue the problems on the next page. Alright? Bye now.